Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jamie and this is Texas Girl DIYs. Let's get started.
Alright, for the first DIY, I have these two canvas totes that I picked up from Dollar Tree. I flipped them inside out, and then using my craft scissors, I'm going to cut the handles off of both of them. Now for this DIY, I'm making two pillowcases, and because I want a nice clean seam, I flipped the canvas totes back the other way, and because the words are showing and they're pretty dark, I'm going to go in with my Waverly chalk paint and elephant, and I'm just going to go ahead, put my cardboard inside the tote, that way none of the paint bleeds through, and I just do one coat of paint on just the one side that has the words on it. Now for the most part, this chalk paint really does cover those words really well, and in some lights you can actually see the words actually poke through, but I'm really not that worried about it. I'm going to be covering it up anyway. Now if you have fabric paint, I highly recommend using the fabric paint, but I didn't, so I'm just using what I have at home. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing with the second tote, same thing, the gray paint over top of the words, and I just did one coat. So I had gotten this stencil from Amazon, and I can leave a link for it in the description box down below. I think it is so super cute. It says Cotton Pickin Blessed. That is just so adorable. So I just take my painter's tape and I tape it down because I don't need it moving around on me. And with that same elephant chalk paint, I just dab my paintbrush lightly into the paint, and then I just dab it onto the stencil. This ended up looking so super cute. So here it is all stenciled out, and I think this is so adorable. So on the second canvas tote, but the same side, I'm just going to, in a random pattern, use the same colored elephant chalk paint and just use the cotton stem on the stencil. And I just dab my paintbrush into the paint and just, put the cotton stem in a random pattern. So this is what that looks like once that's all done. Now on the reverse side of it, the gray side of it, I'm going to actually take my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm just doing the exact same thing as I did before, only this is the gray side and I'm doing it in the white paint, and I'm actually going to stencil out the Cotton Pickin Blessed. And here's what this looks like. I didn't even bother waiting until the paint was dry. I just took it right off, and I think this looks adorable. So the next thing I'm going to do is take this fiber fill I picked up from Walmart. I think it was like $3 or $4. And then I'm actually just going to, kind of like when you're at Build-A-Bear, just fill your canvas tote until it is as full as you want it to be. So the next step here is I'm going to seal it with some hot glue, and what I do first is that I just take my hot glue and then the little squares where it's like stitched where the handles were, I put a little bit of hot glue on each of those squares and then fold that seam over because I want a nice clean look on these pillows. So I do that on all four of the little squares, folding those in, and then on the corners there's like another seam where I also add a little bit of hot glue, fold that in so that when I go to seal the whole thing, it'll be a nice clean look. So once that's all said and done, I just take my hot glue gun again, do a bead of hot glue starting at the corner, and I'm just going to seal those. I'm sorry, this is a little blurry. I will take care of that in just a second. But I just go ahead and just press those two seams together, and if you get a little bit of hot glue kind of seeps out a little bit, you can just wipe it off with your finger. I will adjust the blurriness here in just a second. I apologize. And I just keep going all the way down the line, just another bead of hot glue. And believe it or not, this hot glue actually holds these pillows together. Now, I mean, I haven't washed this or anything. This is probably one of those, like, you have to, you know, spot clean it or something. But my kids have been playing with it and been sitting on them and everything, and they've been holding up really well. But anyway, yeah, just keep running the beads of hot glue and pressing those seams together, and you do this for both pillows. For this next DIY, I just took 2 Pringle cans, and I also took a bag of these wooden clothespins that my neighbor had given me a long time ago, and we're going to make some candle holders. Now the first thing I do is I took one of the clothespins and I placed it up against the Pringles can, and I just wanted to measure out where I needed to make my lines and then cut the cans. Now you don't have to use Pringle cans, you can actually use like soup cans or something like that, but I just thought using the Pringle cans was just, you know, something that I wanted to use. I don't know. Anyway, so I just go ahead on both of them, make my lines, and then once I was done, I used my craft scissors and I cut away. Now, because I don't want any of the red or green to show, I am just doing 1 coat of this Waverly chalk paint in Elephant, and I do 1 coat over both cans. Once both cans were completely dry, I just went ahead and ran a bead of hot glue down the can and placed the clothespins down, and I leave a little bit of a gap in between each of the clothespins, and it's just so that it looks more uniform. Next, going in with the Waverly chalk paint in Agave. I'm so excited to use this for the first time. I just did 1 coat over all the clothespins, and it probably would have been easier if I would have painted the clothespins before I glued them onto the can, but it is what it is, so it's not a big deal. But you really do want to get in between all of the cracks and crevices and just the ins and outs and everything, so that's why I said that it might be easier to paint this before you glue them on, but it's okay. It ends up looking really nice. So then, going in with the Waverly chalk paint in white, I just dabbed my paintbrush into the paint and then just got some of the paint off of there, and then I am just lightly brushing over the clothespins, just giving it a more distressed look. So the next thing I do is I take this glass candle holder from Dollar Tree and I flip it upside down, and then just on that bottom part I did 2 coats of white paint on this, and then what I'm going to do afterwards is I'm going to wrap the stem in some Dollar Tree jute twine. But now while that was drying, I also took my jute twine and I put some hot glue on 3 of the clothespins, and then I just wrapped it probably about 4 times just to give it that little more of a farmhouse look. And I'm just going to add a little bit of an embellishment here. I had to scrap the footage that I had that when I was making this jute twine flower. I am really sorry, my hand was just in the way and it was just so bad I couldn't even use it. But this is so easy to do. All I really did was make a loop with the jute twine and added some hot glue, and then once that was set I just kept adding more and more loops, and each time I made a loop I would just add more and more hot glue until I had the desired look I was going for. And then I just had these tiny little white Dollar Tree flowers. My cat got a hold of it and some of the flowers kind of went flying, but it kind of worked out in my favor because I took one of them and I made like a little center out of it. And so then once I had that done, I just went ahead and hot glued that onto my on my candle there. And so then here I'm just going to go ahead and use some hot glue and wrap the stem of this candle stand with the jute twine. And for whatever reason, I lost the footage of this too. I apologize. I keep losing footage of my videos here. But anyway, so once I had all that done with the candle stem, I took that candle stand and I hot glued it to the bottom of one of the candle holders. And then for the small candle holder, I ended up just taking 4 wooden beads and I just gave it some feet with some hot glue. And I think they turned out really, really cute. This was very simple and fun to make. Okay, for our last DIY, I got this piece from Goodwill for 99 cents, and I just, I took the sheet music off of it, gave it to my daughter, she did a DIY, and then I just scrapped this sad looking bow and decided to do something else with it. I painted it white and distressed it, and then I changed my mind. I didn't want to do, I was going to like make some kind of like candle sconce or something out of it, and then I changed my mind. So I'm just trying to use my strength, and this twine is held on by a lot of hot glue, and I thought that maybe I could just rip it off with my hands, but instead I had to go get my butter knife and just kind of shove that underneath, and it popped off pretty easy. Next, going in with my trusted old Waverly antique wax paint, I just did 1 coat over this entire thing. Well, not really, just the front and all the sides. Next, I am taking this scrapbooking paper I had from Hobby Lobby from a while back, and I'm just going to cut this into strips. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some flower petals out of it. Now, I had seen this done on According to Kat's channel. She actually just posted a video where she made this beautiful looking flower using paper from the from books, and I didn't have any books that I could just, you know, tear up or anything, but I had the scrapbooking paper and this worked perfectly. So I'm just making the flower petals. And then you just cut a tiny little slit at the bottom, and I'll show you here in a second why. So in total, I had 5 of the large flower petals, and then I also go and make 5 of smaller flower petals using the same paper. So going with the burlap that I happen to have from Walmart, I just cut a chunk of it, not a really big chunk because I'm only making 5 flower petals out of it. So you don't have to cut too much of it off. So as you can see here, I have paper, burlap, paper, and that's pretty much the steps your flower is going to be. So okay, next I'm just taking these are my large flower petals, and as you can see there's like a little slit cut right there in the middle, and then all you're going to do is you're just going to take just a tiny dab of hot glue, and you're just going to put it on one side of the slit, and then you're going to take the other slit, the other part of the paper, and then you're just going to cross it over and hold it until the hot glue sets. And then I just take my thumbs, and this is just so that the flower petals has some like kind of dimension. That way it's not like a flat flower petal. You want to give your flower some dimension. And I do this with all of them, all 5 of the large ones, and I do this with all 5 of the small flower petals. It's just very simple, a little time consuming, but it turns out so beautiful in the end. Just a little dab of hot glue, crossing that other part of your paper over, and then just kind of folding it with your thumbs. And here in just a little bit, you'll see me with a pencil, and you can kind of shape your flower petals with the end of a pencil if you need to. Now we're just going to go ahead and assemble our large flower petals, and all I did here was just take some hot glue. I'm sorry for the blurriness, I will fix that in just a second. A little bit of hot glue, and then you take another large flower petal, and then you just stick that onto it, and then you just keep repeating this step until you get all your 5 petals glued together. Now if you have those finger protectors from Dollar Tree, this would be the time to use it. I'm not kidding. I really need to invest in those because I did burn my fingers, but if you use just a little bit, it doesn't hurt that much. But if you've got the finger protectors, I highly recommend using them. And I do repeat the exact same process with the small flower petals and with the burlap. And then I don't know why, I think my camera must have shut off on me, so I apologize I didn't get footage of this again. But when you go to stack your layers of flower petals, if that makes any sense, you would just have your large flower petals and then put your burlap petals on, hot glue that on top of that, and then take your small flower petals and hot glue that on top of the burlap. And then what I did for the center of my flower is I ended up taking some of the jute twine, and I used the hot glue ever so carefully. I ended up just kind of like winding it up like a So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm just taking my jute twine, and I'm going to hot glue it to the back of my board, and I'm going to wrap this around several times and then hot glue it again on the back. So now that's all said and done, this is how the flower turned out, and I think this is super cute. Like I said, there's the large petals, then the burlap petals, the small petals, and then that's the jute twine in the center there that I just used some hot glue and just kind of winded it up to make a cute little center out of that, and I just kind of hot glued everything together. And then with some more hot glue, I am just going to attach this to the center where all my twine is wrapped around my board. Next thing I do is I take these 3 Jenga blocks and I'm going to create a stand because I want this to be able to stand up on its own. And again, I lost some more footage of this happening. I really got to make sure that I delete old videos, but anyway, so I take the 1 Jenga block and I hot glue it. I took another Jenga block and just kind of like made like an L shape, if you can see that, and then I took another one, angled it just right, and then just filled that sucker up with more and more hot glue. And then look, it stands up all on its own. So the last thing I do is I take one of those small Dollar Tree clothespins. A large one just was too big and I didn't have anything else, so I used a tiny little clothespin, a little bit of hot glue, and then I just pressed that on the edge, and this actually worked out perfect because my cat she knocked over one of my old picture frames and it shattered, so I needed to make another one, and this is how it turned out. It's a picture of my family there, and I really could not be more pleased with how this looks.
I hope y'all enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, consider subscribing, and ring the little bell so you can get notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, in the comment section down below, you can just say hi or tell me which DIY was your favorite. All right, that is it for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see y'all next time, and y'all have a wonderful, blessed day. Bye. All right, I hope that y'all enjoyed, oh God.